Hello, everybody. This is Jean-François Scaligli from Next Labs. Thank you so much for joining. I'm very happy to introduce the topic of today. Today's webinar around data protection, compliance, automation, especially for the aerospace and defense industry. The reason is that there are many topics which are a little specific to this industry, which require special data protection and compliance, which we decided with SAP we would cover today. So today we have two people from SAP who will be presenting, and one of my colleagues from Next Labs. So we have Frank Kliphan from SAP Aerospace and Defense. We have Adrian Higgins from SAP, also in charge of public sector and aerospace and defense. And we have Nicolas Simon from Next Labs, who will be doing a demo about different topics we'll be covering today. So this session will be recorded and will be sent to you after this session, so you can forward to colleagues of yours if you want. That should be working. You will have the possibility to ask some questions. And I think there is one person who wanted to raise his hands. And please write any questions in the Q&A, in the questions chat, if you don't mind. Which we'll be covering either during the session or at the end of the session. So having said that, I will hand over to my colleague from SAP, Frank. And thank you so much again for joining. Thank you, Frank.
Major topics for today, and one is to give you a quick update on the security challenges that we see in the A&D industry, and then we're going to cover different solutions around export control, dual use, and sensitive data management. And of course, at the end, we also have some time laid out for Q&A. So let's go right into the first part, which is a quick update on the challenges that we see. So before we look into the details, I just wanted to start by providing a little bit of context first and share a few points that we see in current discussions with A&D companies. So if we briefly look at the current market environment, we can identify a wide range of challenges for A&D firms across the board that emphasize how relevant questions of data protection, governance, or security already are today, and even more so will be in the years to come. And so major geopolitical and environmental concerns, the impact of the pandemic, all force A&D OEMs and suppliers to rethink their strategies and their portfolio. So we see companies that need to manage the complexity of A&D programs and their supply chains. And they're increasingly leveraging technology innovations such as machine learning or digital twins to better manage cost, risk, and performance of their supply chain or production processes. Also, knowledge management and talent development will have to be digitized more to enable the next generation workforce in aerospace and defense. So in this environment now, we see A&D companies basically focusing their investments across 5 major business priorities. And for each one of them, companies need to consider implications on data protection and security. And here are just a few examples for that. So one key business priority for each A&D manufacturer is, of course, to achieve more customer centricity. And this also means addressing new markets, which might result in strict regulatory requirements that need to be fulfilled to even be allowed to enter a market. For example, the ITAR laws or the recent updates to the CMMC cybersecurity framework for companies that want to participate in the US DoD programs, or GDPR regulations regarding European data privacy as another example. But it also means that, for example, we see more companies that want to transform their customer experience by offering online portals and on-demand services, for example, in aftermarket, based on modern cloud infrastructure, which means they need a strategy on various levels. How to deal with cybersecurity, access controls, or sovereign cloud infrastructures, something we'll get to later. Another main priority is about how to drive innovation forward, both for the actual products and services the companies sell, as well as for the internal processes. And a core requirement has always been, of course, to enable secure collaboration between different partners in A&D from the early design on, where you need solutions that allow companies to exchange, to share technical information efficiently, while protecting everyone's IP and fulfill country-specific legal requirements for export of technical data. So one objective for many organizations these days is to transition into a more cloud-based environment. Companies also in aerospace and defense see the value in adopting cloud services and applications to get quicker access to innovation, to reduce TCO and landscape complexity. And this could include step-by-step introduction of modular cloud apps to modernize specific business processes, or help companies provisioning data as a service offerings, for example. And this leads to underlying questions on data protection and privacy, as well as to regional legislative context. So in Europe, for example, the Gaia X initiative is set up to provide a trust-based and sovereign infrastructure to increase digitalization across industries and enable new business services that create value for all participants. And as A&D is a globally distributed industry, we see topics like digital twin or the digital thread that are driving demand for cloud-based cross-company collaboration and data sharing platforms. We have already mentioned engineering collaboration, but throughout the entire operational supply chain, companies look for capabilities to flexibly adjust their supplier network. For example, to onboard new suppliers, maybe from a different country with different set of regulations. In core manufacturing, we can extend the concept of a digital thread across different companies, also with the IoT dimension on the shop floor, for which edge cloud computing is more and more adopted to collect granular data. And topics like cybersecurity have to be considered in such an infrastructure as well. Many A&D companies are also re-evaluating currently their portfolio and look at defense and space as solid business segments for future growth. We see that platforms that provide flexibility to classify and segregate data, such as resources, that can be shared versus just strictly limited to defense use, give companies more freedom to optimize the operations on enterprise level. And finally, A&D firms look at ideas like turning data into a product for future revenue streams. And this will have companies look into topics like data acquisition, storage, or ownership more holistically. And that in alignment, of course, with customers and partners. And that's another example where we see that secure, trusted networks will make a difference, will be to optimize outcome-based contracts, such as performance-based logistics, combining simply data from different sources. So with that introduction into the A&D environment that we see, I would like to hand over now to Adrian to talk a little bit more about the cloud aspects of that.
So thank you very much, Frank. So to pick up on what Frank was saying, and before I dive straight in, Frank mentioned a number of things. He mentioned that driving innovation is helping, is pushing many A&D customers towards the cloud to give them the means for quicker innovation. Moving towards the cloud, though, doesn't come without its risks. When you move towards the cloud, one of your main reasons when you're looking at the innovations that Frank was mentioning earlier, you're looking at a system that is able to be connected to, communicated with, not only by your internal staff and contractors, but also by your customers and your prospects, by your suppliers, by your partners. You're looking to get interconnection. You're looking to get a sharing information. Might also be sharing data with legitimately sharing data with competitors. At the same time, though, there is a threat vector that is constantly knocking on the door of cloud solutions. That threat vector could be malicious actors, the traditional hackers, the traditional let's go in and get the data, maybe ransomware, maybe steal the data. That data could be stolen for competitors who are looking to try and get an upper edge by understanding what you're doing and trying to get hold of some of your intellectual property. So you're looking to protect against that. There's also a legislative requirements that could be forcing your cloud suppliers to have to hand over data, notably to governments. So when you're looking for a compliant cloud, you're looking for a solution that is able to run within your region, maybe in your country if that's what legislation requires, be accessed only by approved personnel, to make sure that if you've got customers, prospects, suppliers, and partners accessing it, then they are only accessing data that they can legitimately access. And at the same time, making sure that the skills are in place and the tools and the experience and the processes and the policies are there to be able to keep out the threat actors that you don't want accessing your systems. So finding ways to stop governments from applying extraterritorial access rights, such as the Cloud Act, to try and access data, to stop malicious actors from getting in to steal data, to stop competitors accessing data they shouldn't be accessing and stealing intellectual property. So that's what we're looking at within a compliant cloud. How do we find the balance between open, interconnected systems that are secure, that are protected, and that are not subject to extraterritorial access? The way we've done this in SAP, we've been doing this for many years, especially for US federal environments, where we've been hosting through our SAP NS2 organization solutions that are based using the hyperscalers GovCloud solutions in the US. And so we are running solutions built on NIST 800-53. And these solutions are then FedRAMP certified. They're being run by SAP NS2 personnel who are accredited and authorized for accessing these systems and managing these systems. They're based in the US, and they have been running these platforms for US federal organizations. The same organization, SAP NS2, has now helped us to expand to provide a critical data cloud based in Australia. This is for Australia and New Zealand federal public sector customers. So we're using AWS and Azure in Australia, and these solutions are being built to meet, for instance, the IRAP requirements of Australia. And again, NS2 is providing personnel, boots on the ground, who are managing these solutions in Australia to help meet the requirements needed for Australian public services. We are now working also on the UK to provide the UK data cloud. Similar approach with NS2 providing personnel in the UK to run and manage the platform, and that UK data cloud will be certified up to the Cyber Essentials Plus standard required by UK public sector customers. So this is a concrete example of what SAP has been doing in the compliant clouds area, especially around the Five Eyes countries. So beyond so with the four that I mentioned here, you also have Canada, and there's been a lot of work that's been done for Canada by NS2. Now the Five Eyes approach doesn't quite work as well, for instance, with other regions such as the European Union. Within the European Union, we've had for many years an EU access option to limit who is able to support and administer systems running within the European Union for EU customers. And we are constantly looking at new ways to extend the EU access approach or to how we manage hosting in different countries within the European Union to give our European Union-based customers the assurance they need that the systems they are running from us are protected and safe from the different threats I mentioned earlier. One of the issues in the European Union is the political goalposts are moving all the time. So this is something that SAP's resources and skills, we're able to apply those to be able to ensure that we're able to provide a compatible, compliant solution. We're also looking at the rest of the world and still with Americas and Canada at optimizing our existing resources. We have data centers, whether it's through partners, whether it's through hyperscalers, or whether it's through physical SAP managed facilities. And we're looking at ways to optimize those solutions those offerings to ensure that what we are delivering to our customers within those regions are compliant and meet their expectations.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Second innovation from SAP and NextApps, automate data protection and compliance. NextApps and SAP have been offering to many large A&D customers an automation platform based on the US National Institute of Standards ABAC framework. ABAC stands for Attribute-Based Access Control. This framework is based on external policies, which you see on the screen, horizontal policies, where you define your export control, cyber, data segregation policies in natural language. And those will be applying to both classification, protection, and log reporting, alerting, auditing purposes. So the same policies will apply all along the life cycle of classification, protection, reporting. This is an example of a policy in natural language where you see on the left who is trying to do what, on the right, action performed, on what, which is the resources, which can be classified data, which can be export control data, different levels of classification. And you have the notion of environment attributes where geolocation is, you can see geolocation. It's an important topic for export control and many A&D customers. And those access policies are taking external attributes, external contexts, automatically into consideration, like you say. So those are external attributes, the user and the resource and the environment, export licenses, which are being used and consumed by the policies. Third innovation, the policies apply cross-application instead of building policies and controls application by application. As you see, the same policy, external policy engine, will be enforced on different applications, ensuring total consistency about making sure and applying the policies in all the necessary applications. We have customers in A&D with several dozens of applications managed and ruled by central policies. Now, Nicolas will show you how it looks like in the solution.
So thank you, GF. So I will show you how it works in different applications in ECCs and Enovia, how we can have cross-application policies applied. So first of all, in SAP, this short example will show you how you can to have a self-declaration of your location. So this will be the entry point, the main criteria to have access or not to ITAR documents. So in SAP, we have developed this kind of self-declaration of your location. This declaration will be used into a policy. So you can see here the ITAR policy developed for this. So depending on the location, you will have an allow or a deny to access to the classified ITAR documents. The ITAR documents is classified through a classification table in SAP. So you will have, for instance, some materials. It could be also any kind of documents classified, or any clearance could be for ITAR, for ERR, for any classification level you want to create on this particular data. After that, when any user tries to access to particular classified data, depending on his allowance, he will have sometimes an allow like that. So you will see a user can check a stock overview with the transaction in SAP MMBE, and he can also navigate as usual because the document classified is allowed to him. For another user, when he tried to do for also another classified material with no clearance on this material, he will have a message saying access to ITAR denied, no authorization. So due to that, the user will be blocked. And this result of the policy will also be logged in our platform and be able to be sent to any other tool, any alerting and monitoring based on this log and audit. We can apply in the same manner, for instance, in Enovia or 3DX, we can imagine to have the same kind of restriction for ITAR materials or ITAR documents. So if I'm logging into a 3D platform, I will try to see first the classification of this particular data. So this data is also classified as ITAR. It's embedded to the application also, like the table, the custom table in SAP provided by Next Labs. And according to this classification, if a user tries to do some operation like opening the drawing, he will have an access deny. If he tries to do some other operation, changing the document, adding some new documents in this particular classified part, he will have also some deny to do this kind of operation. Even for downloading, if you try to download some checkout of some drawings locally, he will have also a deny access error message because the full material is classified.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. Fourth innovation, critical for A&D customers, protecting the files which may contain critical defense or export control data. Those files can easily be extracted today by legitimate users using their roles, who can save them on their local drives and may send them unprotected to friends in China, in Russia. The solution we provide is allowing to protect not only the files at the time you create those from the applications, it's an access control enforcement policy, but also encrypting the file. So we can provide both DLP types of protection, really ensuring that the data is not extracted, blocking the action, preventing the action based on the policies, but also encrypting the files so that the files leaving the enterprise is still protected and will only be seen and readable by legitimate users according to the policies. And now Nicolas will show you how it looks like in the solution.
So thank you, Jean-François. I will show you how we can protect file leaving SAP and how the file will be protected out of SAP. So for that, we will just log in SAP for a particular transaction, CV03, for instance, and we will display a material. In this material, this bit of material, you will have some document attached to this material. So let's check the document assignment. And for instance, we have here some 3D views, 3D drawings for this material, like a cylinder. So it's a VDS file, so a 3D file that can be stored into SAP. So in SAP, you can double click on the file and open this file in the viewer embedded in SAP. So for that, as the user is allowed to see this critical material, there is no restriction in SAP due to the allowance of the users. But as this material has been classified, when the same user tries to download, to copy locally a version of this 3D views, he will have protection automatically applied by the policy. So as soon you will download the file locally, you will protect the file. How the protection is working is done through an encryption into a container. This container is named .nxl, so it's a new extension of this file, and the file is fully protected. To be able to access to the document, you need to sign in into the platform, the Nextcloud platform, Skydian platform, to control the access out of the system. So here, if I'm connecting for BOM engineer number 1, for instance, this user will be allowed to see this material out of SAP. So let's connect. Let's double click on the file. So now the policy will be applied and let this user open the file. You have seen the difference here. There is some watermark. The watermark is to protect this 3D file and just to display who do what at what time. You can check by a right click on the file the exact permission for that file. The permission is in accordance with the policy. So for that particular file, this user has view, edit, print, save as, and the famous watermark you just saw. So for that, it's for the allowed users. In case the user is denied with no clearance for this particular classification material, he will have a full deny access. So let's connect with another non-allowed users like the bomb engineer number 4. And by also connecting to the platform, as soon you will try to double click, the system will require to the platform if you are allowed or not. And as this user is not allowed, the system will automatically display an error message saying deny access. Okay. So by this, you have protected your file out of the system, out of the SAP system.
Thank you, Nicolas. Fifth innovation, solve the old challenge of duplicating physical instances in order to achieve data segregation. So this has created a lot of costs due to dozens and dozens of duplicated physical environments. What the solution does is still using external policies does provide logical data segregation. So you can have a policy logically allowing to segregate with military proof levels of security, logically segregate data for France, which will never be readable by any US citizen and vice versa. And the same for Germany. So the policy will allow that a French user can only see French data, for example. Policies can be more complex than that one. So we have a lot of customers using this approach to logically segregate data rather than physically duplicate environments again and again. Last innovation is the end of custom code for compliance. As you know, custom code has been the direct response to many compliance topics and challenges in A&D that has created a custom code monster, as some customers call it. What we allow is with an external policy, the same policy engine, either to use traditional enforcement at the user interface at the application level, which requires still code, but that allows granular-based access control. Or on the left, you see database client enforcement, which means that at the database level, you can enforce without any code, masking, filtering, access control. This presents many advantages. First, you are sure that the same enforcement will happen in potentially hundreds of T codes or tiles in SAP. Second, that even super users like debuggers will be protected. And third, that you don't have any custom code anymore. So it's becoming very important to stop custom codes, not only in S/4HANA, but also in the ECC for visibility, for maintainability, for auditability reasons. So this is a pretty new approach. She's seeing a big traction, a big acceleration, because this is responding to the no custom code challenge and no role impact challenge. And Nicolas will show you now how this looks like in the solution.
So thank you, Jean-François, for this last innovation. I will present you the main impact of our tool is no code into the application, and especially in SAP. So SAP is quite complex in terms of coding. With this kind of new tool, you can enforce the decision into the application, into any kind of layout of SAP. Could be the SAP GUI, could be any Fiori apps, any interfaces, any connection to any data from the DB will be protected in the same manner. The principle is very simple. You will have some different allow or deny. For instance, if you want to mask the data for the bank details into SAP, you will just define the different field from which table you want to protect. In that case, you will have a deny for the different bank numbers, etc., account numbers from different tables. So from this table BNKA, you can see here for a critical field like the bank details, only for the US bank, you will mask the real value with some stars. And this masking is a dynamic masking at the time you will display, at the time you will select the data from the DB. There is no change into the DB itself, into the tables, only at the time you will select, you will read the data. For the load user, for sure, it's transparent, nothing happened. You can see here, this could be done at multi-level. For instance, in this table, we can mask 3 different fields. Could be bank L, bank N, account name, etc. You can also define what type of masking you want. It could be 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, 999, up to you to define according to the data model of your SAP table. The same principle will be also applied into any transaction. As soon as you have masked the bank key and bank account, even if you are trying to access from a transaction like the BP business transaction, business partner transaction, to display the whole content, it will be masked everywhere, even in any tab, any subscreen, etc. It will be masked in the same manner for this transaction, but also for the corresponding BUP3 transaction. You will have exactly the same. The field will be masked in the same manner everywhere. How it works, very, very efficient. Only the policy can determine which field will be masked. There is no code. You will just name the field from the table, and you will name also the masking symbol, define the masking symbol. You have different patterns and so on. And you can add some masking condition like the country of the bank, or the partner of the bank, etc. You can imagine multiple advanced conditions to control the masking or non-masking of the data. And again, it's dynamic masking, no change into the real data itself, only at the display into any screens.
Thank you, Nicolas. We have 4 questions, so I will. We're now going to the Q&A part. First question, probably for Adrian, does SAP new cloud approach resolve Schrems 2 concerns we face with US hyperscalers?
Okay, just double check. You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yep, okay. So very good question and very appropriate at the moment. As I mentioned during my presentation, staying on top of EU laws and the way EU is going, it's a very changing and challenging atmosphere. So our aim is that when we update our compliance offerings within the EU, that we will be addressing, we'll be able to help address the Schrems 2 findings. For the moment, there's still a lot of work going on, but that's certainly our objective.
Great, thank you, Adrian. Question for Nicolas. Can you also protect data from outsourcers in India, in Romania, from debuggers?
Yes, with our solution on SAP, you can apply the protection to any user. It could be for his location, for his team, for segregation by department, etc., but also for the technical user or user with high privilege, like the developers or the administrator of the system. Even if you are trying to access with a debugger or with AC16, as I show you, or if you are doing some extract, etc., as soon you will extract the data from the DB, read the data from the DB, select, the masking will be applied according to the allowance or the attribute of the user. So even for a high privilege user, you will apply the same manner. So it's a well protected anywhere.
Great, thank you, Nicolas. The question, do you provide automated or manual classification? So I can take this question. So yes, the first step, as I showed in the introduction, the policies manage the full cycle from classification to reporting and protection, obviously. The first step being classification. And yes, we do provide classification tables. And the classification can be ruled by policies, so it can be either manual or automated classification, which is obviously the first question of any data protection project. So that's a critical topic of knowing the data, which comes before, and classifying the data, which is exactly the step we provide some solution for. There's another question for file protections. Can you both block the print, save as, but also encrypt the files so that the files are protected after being sent? Would be a question for Nicolas.
Yes, a good question. We can put in terms of, let's say, action from the application itself. So if we're talking about SAP, you can protect the download, but also the print. So we can enforce the decision on the print button to avoid the printing from SAP. But as soon you will also download or extract the file from SAP, the policy will be also automatically applied according to the classification of the document. So if it's a protected document, a document to protect, sorry, we will encrypt the document. And by this, by construction, it will be protected afterwards. For any sending, share, reshare file, it will be protected. So even if you send by email or on a USB key, etc., the user who will receive the file need to have the corresponding attributes and be logged to our platform to be able to open the file, to print the file from his mailbox, etc. So same rules from any access.
Thank you, Nicolas. So I think we are good with the questions, and we wanted to do the webinar in less than 40 minutes. I think we achieved this objective. So I hope it was useful to address not only A&D concerns, but in more general terms, highly regulated industries. You would be receiving a recording of this session, which you can be sharing, and the link can be shared with external people. They can view the recording as well. So thank you so much for attending, and have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.